Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. I want to welcome you to the Muslim Parent Webinar, Supporting Your Child in School. My name is Ameena Jandali, and I am the Content Director for Islamic Networks Group, known as ING. Today we're going to talk about some of the challenges of Muslim students in Part 1, including the political environment today and the impact of Islamophobia specifically in schools and educator bias in the schoolroom. And then in Part 2, we're going to look at ways that parents can support their child in school, including enhancing their communication with their children, getting more involved in their child's school and classroom, and then suggesting educational resources for teachers and staff. We're going to conclude with a discussion about your rights and responsibilities for preventing and responding to bullying, and provide you some online tools for your Muslim youth, and then give you an overview of the ING Youth Workshop. So Part 1, we're going to discuss some of the challenges of Muslim students today, looking at kind of the political environment that we're dealing with. We know that we are experiencing growing Islamophobia in this country, and Islamophobia is defined in a couple of ways by the Oxford Dictionary as an intense dislike or fear of Islam, especially as a political force, or hostility or prejudice towards Muslims. Islamophobia was defined as far back as 1997 by the Runnymede Commission as an outlook or worldview involving an unfounded dread and dislike of Muslims, which results in practices of exclusion and discrimination. And there are various frames or views that are associated with Islamophobia that the Runnymede Commission also describes. And these include the view that Muslims are monolithic and Islam is static, separate and other from other cultures or civilizations, inferior to the West, barbaric, irrational, primitive, and of course sexist, that it is violent and aggressive, supportive of terrorism, and that Muslims and Islam are engaged in a clash of civilizations because Islam is really a political ideology cloaked as a religion. This growing anti-Muslim sentiment is very clearly demonstrated in a couple of polls as far back as 2014, where it showed a distinct drop in the views about Muslims from 35% in 2010 to 27% in 2014, viewing Muslims favorably. And so according to that poll, Muslims and Arabs had the highest unfavorable and the lowest favorable ratings. A similar poll in 2014 put Muslims again as most negatively rated of all religious groups, even 1 point below atheists. And then a 2015 YouGov poll showed that only 21% of Americans have a favorable view of Islam. Another poll that year showed that 56% of Americans believe that Islamic values are at odds with American values and way of life. And so we obviously have a major percentage of people in this country looking negatively at Islam and Muslims. And these have real life implications with, as you are probably very much aware, a surge in hate crimes in 2015 that carried on into 2016 and now into 2017. And these include assaults against persons as well as against mosques, as well as verbal and other threats. And unfortunately, we're seeing this not only against Muslims, but against people of many different backgrounds. Now, looking specifically at the impact of Islamophobia in schools, we know that there is a direct impact on Muslim students in the classroom. When we're talking about teenagers, we know that teens are generally challenged during this age. Adolescence is a very challenging time for all teenagers because they may be ashamed or conflicted about their identity, but this is more pronounced if they belong to a minority group because they may have additional issues to be concerned about, such as their names that are foreign. They may look or behave different than other classmates. They may not fit in as well as their classmates or feel somewhat isolated because they have more restrictions or because they have certain expectations at home versus what is expected at school. And parents may often be unaware of or really can't relate to the issues that are affecting their children. They haven't experienced them themselves. They may be very different from the life experience that they went through when they were in school. And of course, all of these issues that students experience generally are compounded for Muslim students by ongoing and rising Islamophobia. And this Islamophobic attitude has resulted also in the bullying of Muslim students. There has not been a national survey, but a 2015 California survey showed that 55% of Muslim students have experienced some form of bullying, mainly in the form of verbal bullying, name calling, teasing with common terms like terrorist, killer, camel jockey, and girls who wear the headscarf, 29% have complained that their hijab has been offensively touched or pulled. 9% have experienced some kind of physical harm or harassment. And this same survey also shows that 20% of Muslim students have reported being discriminated against by a teacher or administrator, which we'll talk about in more detail a little later. So students often feel either targeted or marginalized during this time, and particularly when there are discussions about Islam and Muslims, or when there has been an event involving Muslims. And now all of this going on has a definite impact on students in the classroom, and particularly persistent bullying and harassment, where students are scared to go to school because they know that they're going to be bullied by fellow students. And this has a long-term effect on their mental health in the form of depression, anxiety, problems sleeping, a poor adjustment to their school, and of course this also impacts their academic achievement. And below you'll find some reflections by Muslim students about their experience. Many of them talk about being judged just because they're Muslim, made to feel unwelcome, and just really feeling anxiety about reaching out to fellow students in something as simple as playing with them on at recess. Even more concerning than bullying by fellow classmates is educator bias in the classroom, as we alluded to previously. And specifically on the topic of discussions about Muslims in the classroom, this takes place in current events or history, when students may be asked to bring in an article about something that's happening in the news. And obviously with ISIS in the news and these discussions focusing on ISIS, that may paint all Muslims negatively if the teacher doesn't make it very clear that this is a fringe group and the majority of Muslims are very much against these kind of actions. Additionally, conversations about wars overseas or other current events that focus on us versus them may actually relegate students of those backgrounds, Muslim or Arab backgrounds, to the enemy, or lack sensitivity towards civilians who died in Muslim countries versus American soldiers. Even more egregious, sometimes Muslim students may be asked to act as experts about issues relating to Muslims, and for an adult to serve as an expert on some of these topics is challenging, let alone a young person. And so for all of these reasons, Muslim students may really dread current events. They may feel a lot of shame or anger about their Muslim identity. There has also been, as we noted, a rise in complaints about teacher bias, including biased comments, such as a teacher who in March 2015 called a 14-year-old Muslim high school student a raghead Taliban. Another teacher in Texas told a Muslim student, "We all think you're a terrorist." And another one told a Muslim student that, "I can't wait until Trump is elected. He's going to deport all of you Muslims." Now, obviously, these are totally inappropriate, and bullying by a teacher then results in bullying by fellow students, and again, the life of a Muslim student is made miserable in their school experience. Less egregious, but also more prevalent, is the fact that teachers may be misinformed about Islam, or may be teaching inaccurate information about Islam or Muslims, or using materials that are imbalanced because they may never have studied Islam as an academic subject, and they may be watching the same news sources that all of us are. So some of the behaviors that are unacceptable by a teacher include making fun of or punishing a student for wearing hijab or for other religious clothing, forbidding them to do so, associating a student with an extremist or terrorist group, making fun of their name or their country of origin or their religion, praising or criticizing one religion over another, or suggesting that a student should convert to another religion. And any of these actions are a reason for a student and their parents to bring these issues to the attention of the teacher, and if that doesn't work, then take it up to the teacher's supervisor, whether it's the principal, and if that doesn't work, then taking it even higher. The second part is a look at some of the ways that parents can support their child in school. One of the first and best ways to do so is enhancing your parent-child communication. Very often, Muslim parents, like many immigrant parents, focus only on academics when it comes to school. And they miss the important role that social life plays in the school, because particularly in middle and high school, if the students are unhappy because of their social environment, that is also going to impact their academics, and the social environment in their school is as important, if not more important, than their academic achievement, because they go hand in hand. So some of the tools for really engaging your children and keeping an open relationship include showing them that you really do care. And this needs to go beyond the typical, "How was your day, honey?" You could actually try to get answers, because that question very rarely really works. Like, you know, how did the teacher cover this particular event if there was an attack or something involving Muslims? Or how can we help and be supportive of your day at school or your interactions at school? And verbally and non-verbally really showing that you are supportive and that you're cognizant of what they're going through. And this will go a long way in engaging them with you. The other way to really become part of their school life is to get involved in your child's school and classroom. And this begins really at a young age when they start kindergarten. There are many reasons to get involved. At the most basic is the fact that your child is going to be spending 6 to 8 hours in school a day, 5 days a week. And by sharing time with them in the classroom, it keeps you informed about what your child is learning and doing. It informs you also how your child is participating, if they're engaged in the classroom, as well as some of the social pressures or issues that are impacting your child. Additionally, it's very important to be part of your child's world and for your child to see you as part of their world, so that they don't have these two worlds that are totally disconnected. You can also use this as an opportunity to set a positive example for them, because by seeing you interacting in a way with confidence, it will give them confidence in their own identity and a sense of higher self-worth as well as security. And it also teaches them how to communicate effectively about their own faith as they see you doing so. By establishing relationships in the school, some of the benefits are additionally that it normalizes Muslims and it challenges stereotypes by showing that you're a regular parent with the same concerns as any other parent. And when you establish that rapport with other teachers or with the administrators or other parents, other students, you become known, you become respected, and they will actually turn to you as a resource on issues that relate to Islam and Muslims. And we know that engagement is really the best tool for normalizing perceptions, because when you are out there interacting, talking about the things that they're talking about, showing the same concerns about your children that they're concerned about, it conveys that Muslims are normal people. For the students who grow up seeing you in the classroom, they're going to be more comfortable with Muslims, and they're going to be less likely to have stereotypes or prejudice against Muslims themselves, and more likely to feel empathy and to stand up to bigotry if they know a Muslim, if they have a Muslim friend, and if they've seen you as a parent in the classroom growing up. So some of the ways that you can get involved include attending any regular events that are meant to keep parents informed about academics, including back to school night, which is when you get to meet their teachers, find out what kind of assignments they're going to have, what kind of textbook they're going to use. And it's also usually an opportunity to sign up for any volunteer opportunities. Open house towards the end of the year is an opportunity to find out what they've been studying. And again, to reconnect with the teacher, reconnect with other parents, and again, to show that you are a concerned Muslim parent. And then, of course, parent-teacher conferences keep you informed about what specifically your child needs or how they're performing in the classroom. There are many other school functions that are more social, but are also excellent ways to be engaged and to be involved, such as movie nights or potlucks and picnics that you can contribute to or even help organize. International night is a wonderful opportunity to show off your culture, whether it's by wearing your costume from your native country, by cooking foods that you normally eat, or by displaying artwork, and maybe getting, again, more involved at an organizational level. If you're from a science background, consider volunteering as a judge or contributing to special lectures or events that can often be something that parents can contribute to. They generally at school have PTA meetings on a monthly basis, and attending those, again, is a great opportunity to get involved and to contribute. If you do attend a lecture or a meeting, make a point to ask a good question or make a comment, because that will really stick with people after the event is over. And there are many opportunities, particularly in elementary school, less so in middle and high school, to volunteer both in and outside of the classroom. So inside the classroom, generally, teachers are always looking for help with tutoring or grading papers, or maybe a special art project or science project. And many schools also need help in the library or in the computer lab. And there are always ongoing parties in elementary school that need help either organizing or bringing treats for, or actually on the day of the party, helping to serve and take care of all the little details. Additionally, there are many volunteer opportunities outside the classroom, volunteering for field trips, for organizing picnics, or going on camping trips as a chaperone. Heading a committee or writing for the school bulletin is an excellent opportunity to, once you've talked about other topics, maybe highlighting Eid or some of the other activities that the community may not know about that involves Muslims, or helping with special events such as organizing or helping organize the art fair or the international night, Special Olympics. And if you have the time and you have the capacity, volunteering or serving on the PTA or other committees where you are showing leadership in the school is a profound way to really show that Muslims are engaged and they're part of our communities. If you do accept any of these positions, though, you must do your best in your most professional manner, and remember that in everything you do, your actions are not just representing you, they are representing your faith. So keep that as your benchmark in everything you do inside and outside of your child's classroom. We also have a number of educational resources that you can pass on to teachers and staff members. And these include ING's online curriculum that package basically ING's major presentations with the actual PowerPoints and accompanying text for each PowerPoint, as well as discussion questions, activities, and dozens of videos on topics relating to the subject that's being discussed. So these are an excellent and very detailed resource for teachers when they're teaching about Islam or when they're talking about American history, depending on what the topic is. We also have multi-faith curriculum that talks about all of the 5 major world faiths. We also have, for the general audience, including teachers, of course, answers to frequently asked questions about Islam and Muslims, and these are over 100 questions that have been asked in classroom presentations by students and adults alike. We also have detailed questions about Sharia, ISIS, and Islamophobia. And we have a cultural competency training for teachers and staff that is aimed at developing cultural competency skills, preventing bullying and harassment of Muslim students, and provides educational resources for teachers that is available via webinar through an ING staff member. In areas where we have an affiliate, we also have what is called the Islamic Speakers Bureau program. Send in live speakers in the context of social studies and history in middle and high school when students are studying about Islam. And these topics cover a very basic overview of Islam, as well as a history of Muslims in America, Muslim contributions to civilization, and Muslim women beyond the stereotypes. Here in the Bay Area, we also feature the Interfaith Speakers Bureau, which is also meant to supplement the study of world religions, also in the context of social studies and history in high schools. And we have a number of topics that are all related to contemporary issues. And these feature both panels of the 5 major world faiths, as well as the 3 Abrahamic faiths and Jewish Muslim panels. To access any of these resources, you can go either to our website, or if you wanted to request a teacher seminar or presentations on Islam, you can write to the scheduler at ing.org or call the ING office at 408-296-7312, extension 160. For our online curriculum, you can visit ing.org 7 to 12. And for answers to frequently asked questions, you can visit the ING website at ing.org/all FAQs. I'm now going to turn over the webinar to Ishaq Pathan, who is the ING Youth Coordinator, who will take you through this next section.
Thank you, Ameena. Yeah, everyone, my name is Ishaq Pathan. I'm the ING Youth Coordinator, and I'll first be talking about student rights and responsibilities in schools, and then other ways to prevent and respond to teasing, harassment, and bullying. And then later on in the presentation, I'll go into some tools for Muslim youth and ways that they can utilize them. To begin, so what's really important to remember is that all Muslim students are just like any other student and are therefore guaranteed equal treatment by teachers and administrators. That includes protection from harm, physically on school grounds as well as to and from schools, such as on the bus. And it also includes protection from harassment and teasing in the forms of verbal teasing, indirect teasing, as well as teasing on the internet. So again, what's really important, even though many Muslims might feel it's commonplace, they should not have to deal with any sort of teasing or bullying, and proper steps can be done in order to fix those situations and alleviate that harm. Students are also protected by the First Amendment and are guaranteed to personal religious practice as long as it's completely voluntary. So this includes clothing. Students can come to school wearing a hijab or a kufi and not have an issue with that. They can also take off school for holidays, such as the 2 Eids, and they're also allowed reasonable accommodation for prayer. So should the time for Zohar come along in school, they are allowed to step into an empty classroom or some space and perform that prayer peacefully. Students also have the ability to participate and create religious student groups. So this includes MSAs, or Muslim Student Associations, and these are, great opportunities for young Muslims to gather either at lunch or after school to discuss issues that affect their community, as well as do various forms of outreach to the rest of their school about Islam and Muslims. The rights of parents are essentially to protect the rights of students. So if a student is not being treated fairly, or if a Muslim student is not being allowed his or her right to practice his or her faith, then a parent is perfectly able to step in and ensure that the student is given his or her rights. We often say that parents are their child's best advocate, and so we highly recommend to intervene if your child is not receiving his or her rights. Some ways to prevent teasing and harassment. This really elaborates on what Ameena had spoken about before, but the first is to establish open communication with your child. It's really important to know that if you ask your child, are you bullied or are you teased, they may or may not say no, but just for them to know that you are aware and that you're concerned is enough to help them through some sort of situation. And if they are really comfortable with you, they might go into certain things that are happening at school. It's important to make sure your child has psychological support. This can be in the form of a school counselor. I'll get more into that in the next slide. It's important to instill confidence in your child, especially about their religious identity. And I'll go into this later on in the presentation. Again, as Ameena said, being active in school events and parent meetings is really beneficial, because so long as you're a face in the community, if something does happen, people will go out of their way. They'll make sure that that situation is taken care of. Another way to prevent teasing is to contact the principal or teacher and schedule an ING presentation in order for Muslims and Islam to become more familiar to students and teachers, so that no ignorant comments are being made to your child. If harassment is occurring, there are two ways that parents can respond. The first is to support the child. So to first find out what happened in a very non-judgmental way, to ensure that the child knows that it's not his or her fault, to again provide psychological support. This could take the form of a school counselor or a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Mental illness is really common, especially for young Muslims to be who are being bullied and teased. So making sure that they have that support is really important for them and their development. It's also important to make sure that your child doesn't retaliate, because again, in this environment where there is a lot of anti-Muslim sentiment, anti-Muslim bias, they might get punished more than the initial bully in the first place, which is unfortunate, but a harsh reality. And so it's important to make sure that they don't retaliate. Another way to respond is to work with the school. Again, being involved in the community would help this process, but even if you're not, just making sure that you know the school policies and procedures regarding bullying, and then going up the chain of command to ensuring that the bullying stops. So the teacher, the principal, the superintendent, and further up. We have several ING resources on our website. The first is a bullying prevention guide. This is a pamphlet that talks about statistics on bullying, as well as an in-depth analysis on what bullying is and how to detect it. That's at ing.org/bullying prevention guide. And then we have 2 resource guides. So the 2 resource guides are, one-page handouts that can be put on a fridge. The parent one will speak about signs of your child being bullied, what to do about it. And then the student one looks at various types of bullying, how to identify it, how to recognize it, and then what to do about it. So again, we really recommend that you check these resources out, and they're available with the links featured here. I'm now going to switch gears to talk about some tools for Muslim youth. These are all available online. So for the first is a set of frequently asked questions for youth. We have 55 of them that cover topics on Islam and Muslims, and they include things about women and men, Sharia, terrorism, and an unfortunate reality is that many Muslim youth are being asked very difficult questions by their classmates, by their peers. They might even have the questions themselves, and so we've compiled and tailored a list of 55 of these questions to Muslim youth that they can greatly benefit from. These are available online. We also have youth presentations. So there are 4. The first is on American Muslims and their faith. The second is on Muslim women. The third is on a history of Muslims in America. And the 4th is on Muslim contributions to civilization. So these are tools. They're very short, very youth-oriented, and they are ways for your child to present on these topics in about 20 minutes to his classroom, particularly when Islam and Muslims are being covered in the curriculum, mainly in social studies classrooms. So these resources are also available online, as I mentioned. For that frequently asked questions, it's ing.org/youthfaq, the presentations/youth PowerPoint. We also have guidelines for talking about your faith. These are for adults and youth and are great tips and things to keep in mind when discussing your faith with someone of a different religion. Switching gears, I'll now speak about our ING-based programs, which are mainly to build confidence in youth. So we have 2 different workshops. The first is a workshop in bullying prevention. So it's for youth between grades 7 through 12, and it provides a collaborative, safe space where young Muslims can come together and share their experiences on bullying, learn about their rights, and then look at specific bullying scenarios and think about how to respond both at the time and afterwards. They're really beneficial. It's great for them to hear about bullying from other students as well who are in this workshop, because they feel more comfortable to be able to talk about things that are going on with them. It might be one of the first times they're opening up about these issues, and could lead to them again coming to you and discussing and knowing how to discuss these issues with you as a parent. In addition to the youth workshop, we have a parent workshop. This focuses on knowing students' rights in schools, understanding and responding to Islamophobia, and then ways to get involved in schools. Another main thing we have is the ING Youth Speakers Trainings. So these are for Muslim youth between, again, grades 7 through 12, and they're mainly to give young Muslims the exposure and practice with those resources I elaborated on before. So the first part are on the FAQs, how we at ING speak about Islam and Muslims, and then they're given opportunities to practice in a very creative way. And then we speak about we look at our ING Youth presentations, go over good presentation skills, and then again give them the opportunity to practice on site and get more of an exposure and with our material. This training is a prerequisite for the ING Youth Speakers program, and the program basically certifies young Muslims as speakers to be able to, number one, informally answer difficult questions from their classmates and peers, as well as to formally present on Islam and Muslims during their social studies, during the times Islam is covered in their classrooms. So we connect young Muslims with their schools, with their teachers, so that they can give presentations. Throughout this program, there's a ton of benefits. This includes them learning professional skills that help them in high school, in middle school, high school, college, and beyond. The ability to become proactive and to counter Islamophobia at a high school level or middle school level is really, really beneficial for them, that they feel that they're actually doing something to help the condition of Muslims in the country. It's also a national program, so there are, through our monthly webinars, these young Muslims are meeting Muslims from across the country also doing this work. And again, it's a great volunteering opportunity and program for college admissions if your child is interested in college. We currently have 25 certified ING Youth speakers, mainly in the Bay Area. Here is a picture of 8 of them, but we are rapidly expanding across the country and will soon have many more. And again, to learn more about the ING Youth Workshop, you can go to ing.org/INGYouth. To learn more about the certification process, it's ing.org/youth speaker certification. Basically, what happens is the Muslims go through a speaker's training, then a few weeks later, they study the material that they're given, and they take a certification assessment that tests their knowledge on the subject. And then a few weeks later, they're given an opportunity to do another presentation and see how they do using our resources. And then for the rest of the program, it's they're meeting online via webinars every month and are connecting with their schools and speaking and slowly advancing levels to, eventually become master speakers, where they're now really well versed in Islam and Muslims, in discussing it, and can actively go to other channels to discuss this information. To request a workshop or to get the conversation going about how to bring this to your area, you can send an email to me at ishaq@ing.org, and I'd gladly love to discuss that with you. So with that, we will end. Again, we'd like to thank you very much for taking the time out to watch this. It's really important, and we really hope that you take the information that you learned and implement it in your schools and in your districts. If you have any questions, you can feel free to contact me, Ishaq Pathan, at 408-296-7312, extension 130, or send me an email at ishaq@ing.org. Or you can send an email to Ameena Jandali, the content director, at mail@ing.org. Again, thank you very much, and hopefully this inspires you to go out and help your child in his or her situation.